When should you throw out your art or other creative projects? This is something I've been thinking a lot about lately as we just moved into this apartment, and I find myself unpacking a lot of projects that I've made in the past. Some of them are DIYs, a lot of it is just art, stuff that I made to decorate my space. A recent video I made going through some of my sewing projects of the last 3 years also got me thinking about this. Because if you're someone like me who has a high creative output, whether that's in one specific discipline or in many, at some point you just reach critical mass and there is so much creative stuff that you have and not always somewhere to put it. Because the truth is, not every piece of artwork that I make is something that I want to display. Not every item that I sew for myself to wear is gonna be worn for forever. Today I just wanted to make a very casual, chatty video with none of the usual bells and whistles to talk about this thing that's been on my mind that I'm sure many of you can relate to. At some point or another, you probably will find yourself faced with the question of, what do I do with this thing that I made that I might not want anymore? And really the conclusion I've come to as I'm sorting through all of these things that I've made and deciding if I have a place for them here in our current home, and finding myself with the difficult necessity of getting rid of some of them, what I've had to remind myself is the purpose of these things that I've made was in the making of that thing. It's kind of like how I feel about gift giving. You know, when we give someone a gift, we would like to believe that they're gonna love it and cherish it forever and get so much use out of it, but they might not, and we have to be okay with that because the purpose of a gift is in the giving of it. Once that gift is given, once the exchange has happened, the gift has fulfilled its purpose. And I'm trying to adopt the same mindset when it comes to my creative projects. The purpose of the thing was in the making of it. So whether that's a painting that I made that I now absolutely hate looking at and think is terrible, it's okay for me to get rid of it. And that doesn't mean calling up my mom and saying, hey, do you want this crappy painting I made 10 years ago? No, I'm not gonna foist it off on someone who also probably doesn't want it. I'm gonna be okay with letting it go because I got so much joy in making that thing. Now, sometimes we don't. I do have some projects that I just, when I look at them, I remember the negative mental state I was in, either because it just wasn't a very fulfilling or fun process. Maybe it was just needlessly frustrating. Maybe I was going through something in my life at that time that I now associate with that project. Projects like that, there is no joy and I should just let them go. But yeah, with a lot of these things, the purpose was making them. And even if I didn't come out of that process with an object that I really like and I'm going to use, there still was value in the process of making it. Maybe I learned something, maybe I didn't, maybe it was just to make it. There can be value in just making stuff for the sake of making stuff, you know? It's an enjoyable hobby. It can be therapeutic and relaxing. So that's the mindset I'm trying to adopt as I'm allowing myself to get rid of some things. And so trying to keep myself in that mindset, I guess I'll just share with you a couple of the main reasons that I tend to get rid of art or creative projects that I've made in the past. As I mentioned, if I have negative associations with that project. Now, if it's like really well made, or I'm very proud of the project itself, I might be able to overlook those negative associations, but otherwise, anything that is tied to a negative memory, a negative mental state, I'm more likely to let go of that. Around 3 years ago, I went through my portfolio, which consists mostly of art from high school, a few pieces from college, and I did purge quite a few items from that portfolio. I'm sorry, Mom. The truth is, though, I had a lot of art in there that I just was not proud of. When I looked at it, it made me cringe, and not like in a, ooh, haha, that's kind of a cute, cringy piece I made as a teenager. It was more like, ooh, it's not very good. I want my portfolio to reflect the best of my abilities, to be something that I would be proud to pull out and show somebody. Don't worry, I have digital copies. I always take a picture of a project before I throw it away because I'm not trying to just erase it from my memory. I just don't need to carry it around with me into the next stage of my life. So as an example, I tried to make some abstract art a few years ago, and some of that went well. I do have a couple pieces hanging in our bedroom. Some of that did not go well. This looks like flaming turds flying through outer space, and I hate it. This is gonna go. I'm not sure if I'll just cover the canvas in gesso and reuse it or just get rid of it completely, leaning toward the latter option. But that's a piece of artwork that, yes, I spent time making it, but I don't need it. Another reason I might get rid of a creative project is if it breaks or just stops serving the purpose it was supposed to, or becomes damaged in some way, that does sometimes make it way easier. Have you ever had something break and you're almost relieved? Like, oh, thank God I can get rid of that thing now because it broke. That should be your signal that it should have gone a while ago. So here's an example of that. A couple years ago, I painted these little recycled wine bottles with black paint. Oh, they're really hard to see against the dark background. Sorry. Yeah, they're just painted black, but I mixed in baking soda to give it a texture. This was like a huge thing at the time in DIY spaces. Lots of people were making stuff like this, and I thought I would give it a try. They look really cool. I have very much enjoyed these painted wine bottles for the last couple of years, but now the paint and the baking soda is starting to break down so that every time I touch it, I'm coming away with a gritty texture on my fingers, and the bottles are shedding, basically. I don't want to keep that. This is not something very personal where I'm that upset that I have to get rid of it. It just broke down over time, so these are gonna have to go as well. I am gonna be keeping these weird little plant sticks that I scavenged. I like to decorate with these, so I'm gonna keep those, but the bottles have to go because they're breaking down. And then sometimes it really does just come down to, I don't like the thing anymore, and that's okay. I do feel bad when that's the case. I kind of feel guilty, like, well, I spent all this time making this, now I just don't love it so much. And that's the case with a lot of things for me. So a couple years ago, I made this little felt heart garland, and really the main reason I made this was because I just had an abundance of red felt, and I thought, let's make a bunch of hearts. And it's very, very cute. It has little glass beads and a little bell on the end, but I just don't really decorate for Valentine's Day. I can't think of a use for this in my home. So while this is a beautiful item, I probably will see if anyone else that I know wants it, or see if I can sell it. Worst case scenario, I will donate it and maybe someone else will find it as a treasure at the thrift store. And then the biggest hurdle for me right now with this concept of letting go of your creative projects is definitely applying that to my self-sewn items, especially things that I've made from scratch. As I was reviewing the footage in my sewing review video a couple weeks ago, I felt like I was a little bit too lenient on some of my items, because as I was putting them back in my closet or setting them aside to be mended or re-altered, I did kind of feel like some of those items do need to be let go of. And I'm at a place where I'm pretty good at letting go of my 2D studio art projects when I no longer like them. I'm pretty good about getting rid of DIYs that I no longer like or use, but my sewing projects have been the big hurdle for me at the moment. So really all there is to be done about that is just to be conscious of that and to really challenge myself to take a hard look at whether or not I like the item, if I'm actually going to use it. If I don't love it and I don't use it, it's just taking up valuable space in my home. It's quite a unique challenge compared to just decluttering regular stuff in your home. Like if I'm gonna go declutter the kitchen, that's easy, because I don't have quite the personal attachment to my spatulas that I have to something that I made myself with my own two hands. There's a little bit of myself in every piece that I make, but I have to remember I'm not giving away a piece of myself when I get rid of that item. And the purpose of that item was in the making of it, in the joy or the experience that that brought me. So that's really all I wanted to talk about. I hope you guys are having a good day. See you next time.